So welcome. We are live streaming right now from the Fischler College of Education School of Criminal Justice. And my name is Dr. Grace Telesco. I'm a full-time faculty member with the School of Criminal Justice. And tonight, very exciting, we are continuing, actually, we close out a series where we showcased executives, police executives, in exploring and examining best practices in police community relations. And we have with us tonight an amazing guest. It's the second time that we've had him. He's a dear friend of Nova Southeastern University School of Criminal Justice, Sheriff Wayne Ivey from Brevard County. And before we do that, I just want a little introduction about the topic. We hear a lot about what cops do wrong and catching us doing things all the time, right? But tonight and this series, every Monday night, we've been focusing on catching cops doing something right. And especially in particular, executives, police executives who are the movers and shakers and the pioneers in community relations. And so tonight, our sheriff, Sheriff Wayne Ivey from Brevard County, is going to share with us his best practices in police community relations. He's going to share with us effectiveness in maintaining this amazing relationship with the community. And we're going to highlight all of the good, which is uplifting in a time when we can identify the problems. Let's talk about the solutions, and that's what we're going to do tonight. So before we bring the sheriff on, I want to bring on our dean, Dr. Kimberly Durham. And she's the dean of Fischler College of Education School of Criminal Justice, a great supporter of everything that we do in the School of Criminal Justice. And we're just so grateful to her. And Dean, thank you so much for being here and taking the time out of your busy schedule to support us.
Thank you, Dr. Telesco, and thank you to Joshua and David, who are always there as huge supports. Can't thank Sheriff Ivey enough tonight for taking the time and attention to these important topics. Positivity is a wonderful thing. It's needed in this day and age, and the topic and discussion is very, very timely. So again, thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, Dr. Telesco. Welcome to all of our participants.
Thank you, Dean. I'm going to ask for Sheriff Ivey to come on now. Sheriff Ivey was on with us, I don't know when it was, a few months ago, I think. Sheriff, do you remember when? I know we were in the middle of COVID. You don't remember the month it was?
I want to say it was around October, September, late September, early October of 2020.
Great. And when I had you on that particular time, we were examining animal abuse and all of your initiatives and all of your strategies. And, you know, the dean is also a great dog lover, as am I, as are probably many of our guests that are on and watching and our attendees. But I know you're a big animal lover, and you do not stand for any animal abuse at all. In fact, as I recall, you love to make the collar and march them right in to the county jail. Is that right?
That is. And first of all, thank you, Dean and Doctor, for having me back. I truly enjoy being a part of this and sharing some of the great stuff that we're doing here at the Sheriff's Office. But Doctor, you're exactly right. If somebody abuses an animal in our community, when they get arrested, I personally walk them into the jail. I make no bones about it. If you harm an animal in our community, the sheriff's going to walk you in. We do it live on Facebook, and the response from across the world is just overwhelmingly positive, where people understand, like I do, that if somebody can do that to an animal, if they can go to that level of harm to an animal, they can certainly do the same thing to a human.
Yes, absolutely. And the last time that we were together, you were campaigning.
I was. So we were right in the middle of the 2020 campaign. We're very blessed to have tremendous support from our community. We won that election with 68% of the vote. And, you know, I tell everybody that serving as a law enforcement officer in Brevard County is one of the greatest things ever happened to me in my career. We're very blessed. We have a community that loves what our team does. And as I tell everyone, they love us, they trust us, and they protect us just as much as we love, trust, and protect them.
You know, I'm so glad that you bring that up and you said that, because back in my my experience in law enforcement, I spent 20 years in New York City, retired at the rank of lieutenant in the NYPD. I think you knew that already. I don't know if any of our viewers know that. And as a young cop back in the day, the horse and buggy era, in the in the early 80s, I was a young 23 years old, and I worked in the housing projects in Brooklyn, New York, and we could rely on your radio, and you rely on your training, and you rely on your tactics, and you know you have a gun and a shield and all of that jazz. However, when it comes down to it, if you don't have a good relationship with the community, they're going to be the ones who are going to come to your rescue, and they did. As a young cop walking to a post, you know, they're going to be the ones that are going to call 911. They're going to be the ones that are going to, you know, help and intervene for you. So developing a relationship with the community is so critical, and you prove it not only by all of your initiatives, but by a 68% vote, of confidence, so you know the proof is in the pudding for you.
It really is. And I told our team the night of the election, I told every one of them that my name just happened to be the name on the ballot. The vote that came from our citizens, at that volume, that many people that from all different parties, pulling together and giving us that type of victory. That was a vote for them. That was a vote for what they do every day out in the community. Because if they weren't doing what they do, people would not appreciate me as their sheriff. So the vote may have been for my name on the ballot, but it was truly a vote for the men and women of our agency that are out there putting their lives on the line, leaving their families at night to go protect this community. And you're right. You know, talked about the community coming to help you. Many times early in my career, I was out and got into tussles or whatever it was, and somebody off of the out of the community would pull up and stop and help you get the person under control. And it's about engaging your community. When you think about community policing, if you go back and look at community policing, historically speaking, versus today, there is no different. How we communicate to them is different. How we get our messaging out is different, simply because of technology. But there's no difference. What you're trying to do is build a great dynamic relationship with the community, because they truly are the primary stakeholders in wanting to lower the crime rate. They are the ones that are going to be the victims if we don't have a great mechanism in place to lower the crime rate.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like I said earlier in my intro, I don't want to focus on the problems. We know what the problems are, and like you said, these aren't new. This is not new. You know, policing in a free society is sometimes a contradiction in terms. I think that you and I have said this before. You know, everybody loves the firemen when the fireman comes to rescue you, but no one likes seeing in the rearview mirror, you know, the lights and sirens to pull over. And
Right.
of course, none of us ever do anything wrong. We know that we're all saintly. But our heart starts pounding, and we're all stressed, and we're in fear of what the consequences might be for our actions. But the police officer who's doing his or her job has an obligation according to the social contract. Am I right? I mean, we can't just walk away from things, right?
That's right. And you know, we took an oath to uphold the Constitution. We took an oath to protect our citizens, and that goes in every capacity, whether it's protecting them by making sure people are obeying the speed limit, to protect them against violent crime. It goes that entire breadth, if you will. And you made a great point, Doc, when you said, you know, your heart starts racing. You can be the most law-abiding citizen in the world, and if you see blue lights in your rearview mirror, immediately your stress level, your anxiety level goes up. And so we know that. We anticipate that, and we try and work within that to make sure that everybody stays calm and things go smoothly as we always want them to. But the biggest part of this is I learned a long time ago. If you're familiar with Ed Smart, he's the father of Elizabeth Smart, the young lady that years ago was abducted and held hostage for a long time. Ed Smart said something, and it really kind of made sense to me when I became sheriff as to how we need to create our community relations, our community outreach, if you will. And Ed Smart said, don't wait for the emergency to happen to go into action. Go into action right now. And what he meant by that, he was talking about they never had a pre-designed team or people that were pre-trained to search for a missing child. And so everybody showed up, but nobody really knew what to do at that moment. And so they had to organize and structure. What I took away from it was we wait for the emergency to happen to try and develop a relationship with our community. What we've been successful in doing in Brevard County is developing that relationship long before. I say this a lot, and I believe this from the bottom of my heart. But when you look at, there's all sorts of ships out there. There's battleships, there's cargo ships, there's cruise ships, there's everything out there. But nothing calms rough seas like partnerships and relationships and friendships. And so when we have those things that arise, like any other community, we already have an established partnership or relationship or friendship that's going to help us minimize the impact of it to the community. And we did it by reaching out to them. We're involved at every level. Obviously, social media is a big part of what we do at the Sheriff's Office. Currently, on just one Facebook page, we have about 366,000 people following us on just one of our pages. And so obviously social media is an amazing tool for us, but we go further than that. We're involved in sitting on the boards of a number of in fact, almost every charity in Brevard County. We help them fundraise. We help them in every capacity. We even use our media production team to produce flyers for them, to produce videos for them that help them launch their programs. And so what we've been able to do is engage the community at every level. And when you engage the community, when you engage the stakeholders, it pays huge dividends. In the past 8 years, since I've been blessed to serve as sheriff, we've seen our crime rate plummet by 44% in Brevard County.
You see, now that's the thing. It's the ability to reduce crime, but at the same time, not increase civilian complaints. How does one do that? And people used to ask, in my early days, made 150 arrests on patrol and not one civilian complaint. So, I eventually moved off of patrol and I moved into the police academy as a trainer. And so one would say, well, if you spent 20 years on patrol, maybe the chances of getting a civilian complaint would be a little higher. Okay, that's cool. But the truth of the matter is that if you are an effective partner with the community and you know how to talk to people, it really is about that, and relating to people, you can still reduce crime effectively and also reduce civilian complaints. Do you agree with that?
I do. I think a lot of it comes down to being approachable. And a lot of people see me in my role as sheriff. I try to always be approachable. My cell phone number's everywhere. You can always schedule a meeting with me. If I see you on the street, I'm coming up and talking to you. It may be about what the temperature is. It might be about your dog you're walking on. But when people see their sheriff as being approachable, they perceive that the deputies are approachable as well. So we try and keep that open communication line with our citizens. But it goes even further than that, and it comes down to respect. I tell our new deputies when we swear them in that the greatest compliment they will ever get will not be from a supervisor. It won't be from a business owner. It won't be from a victim or even a family member. The greatest compliment you'll ever get, and Doctor, I know you've probably had this happen in your career, will be from the person you just arrested that shakes your hand at the booking desk and thanks you for how you treated them with respect. That's the greatest compliment you can ever earn in this business. I believe that in my heart. Every time it happens throughout my career, it's always touched me and made me really consider, how we treat people and how we should. In our community, if we don't apologize for targeting criminals. If you're a criminal and you break the law, you're going to go to jail. But we treat people with respect for as long as they'll allow us to treat them with respect.
And you also mentioned sending a message, right? The tone is set at the top, and so if the officers, the deputies, see their chief, their sheriff, the person who's in charge of the police commission or whatever it might be, whoever is in charge, if they see them interacting with the community in an effective way, it trickles down, right?
That you're absolutely correct. You know, and there's another part of that too, that trickle down effect that goes from the top down, and that is how your team perceives you enjoying your job. So you know, another thing that I say at swearing is I ask my team, I only want you to do four things, and four things only. Number one, come to work and have fun. If you're having fun, you will be successful. And this is a great job. Every day of my 40 plus years of being in law enforcement, I've gotten up, couldn't wait to put this uniform on, couldn't wait to go out and do this job. I have a blast. I don't really ever go to work. I go to have fun, and I'm just blessed. I get paid for it in that regard. But I tell them to come to work and have fun. I tell them to put bad people in jail because that's what we get paid to do. I tell them to do it more professionally than anyone else, and I tell them to go home safe at the end of their shift. And that's the buy-in from them. I'll do everything else. I'll get them the tools they need. Our command team and I will work together to make sure they have the resources and the environment to work in. But that's their assignment, is to come and do those four things. And you know, when they know they can have fun, but they're still expected to be professional, they're still expected to work to get that compliment at the booking desk. It goes a long way. And our team carries that. We want to be the most professional agency in the country, is our goal each and every day.
There's a saying, back in my doctoral studies, I took a leadership course, and there's a saying, a happy cow gives good milk. And so the way that the executives, those in charge, the supervisors, the managers, the sergeants, the lieutenants, the captains, and all the way up to the top, the way they treat the people, the way they treat the police officer, the deputy, the way they treat the staff is going to be directly consequential to how they're happy or not. And if they're not happy, and they're not happy at work, and they come to work and they feel that they're being picked on or unjustly treated and all of that, then they feel the stress of the intra-organizational variable, if you will. And so what do you feel about, you know, this happy cow gives good milk philosophy?
Oh, I love it. I have to say, I've never heard that before, but it's a perfect analogy. And you know, today I had the opportunity to go ride with our fugitive unit. I still like to pretend I'm a cop, even though I don't get to do all the fun stuff they do. But I got a chance to go ride with our fugitive unit today, and they know that I'm out there. We're going to pick on each other and joke with each other, but when it's time to be serious, we're ultra serious, and we get the job done. And so yeah, they do. They see it coming down. Our command team, I demand of our command team that they treat their people with respect. They let them know they're having a good time. They're doing a good job. You know, it's funny. I teach leadership, and I came up with I was actually going to speak at a luncheon, and I came up with a little thing that I was going to say, because we talk about different types of leadership. We talk about management at 30,000 feet, which is not me. I like to be more involved. We talk about helicopter management, hovering over your people. That's not me. I want my people to have the autonomy to make good decisions and to do the things we need them to do. Management by walking around. I have a 78-mile county, so not very feasible to do that. So I thought, well, what's my management style? And I finally figured it out. I manage by standing around. I stand behind my people when they need a kick in the butt. I stand beside them in the trenches when they're working. I stand in front of them if somebody's taking a shot at them. And other than that, I stand back and I watch them do amazing things, because they will. If you give them the autonomy to do things, they will do amazing things from it. So, you know, that's kind of what we take out into the field. If you mess up, we are going to hold you accountable. If you're not doing things right and you're tarnishing our badge, we're going to arrest you. We will do it myself. Our team will. We police our own and take great pride in doing it, because if one person in this agency is not doing it right, it reflects on all of us. And so, we make sure the team knows I have their back. If they've done it right, I'm going to stand up for them until the cows come home. And then other than that, they know that I'm going to stand back and watch them do great stuff and tell the world how proud I am of them.
I love it. And it sounds like you are the kind of chief, kind of sheriff, excuse me, I always have the terminology from New York.
From NYPD, absolutely.
Commissioner, right? But you're the kind of sheriff that leads by example, and that is critical and key. Would you agree?
It is. As I said, I was out with our fugitive unit today, but any other time you see me, I'm in my full uniform with a tie on. I think the office of the sheriff demands that. I think that, when the team sees you presenting yourself in a very professional way, they're going to do it. There's a lot of agencies right now that are allowing their uniform personnel to wear beards, allowing their uniform personnel to wear tactical vests instead of the traditional uniforms that we wear. I don't do that. I think when you step out of the car, your image will either command respect or dismiss respect. I think that we're in a profession where at all times we should appear professional. We should have our shoes shined. We should have our uniforms pressed and the creases right and our leather polished. Maybe that's old school, but I will tell you this. I think right now, today, law enforcement needs to do everything possible to make sure that they have a polished image they're projecting to their citizens.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that one of the things that I used to say to my recruits at the police academy was, you just individual officer or individual deputy, you are the best public relations uh, department that any law enforcement agency has, because you interact with one person and you make a difference in that one person's life. Then they tell someone, they come home, they tell their families, and so on and so on, and it really exponentially grows.
That's exactly right. You know, I worked for 20 years. I worked for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and when I first got hired, the commissioner was a gentleman by the name of Tim Moore. And shortly after I got hired by them in 1993, Tim Moore came up with an acronym of SIRQ, and it stood for Service, Integrity, Respect, and Quality. And he demanded that from us. And we talked about, when he first rolled this new mantra out, if you will, we talked about that our job is customer service. And when you look deep into some agencies, they don't treat each other with great customer service or with respect. So how do you expect it to extend outward to the community? So, we kind of developed that same thought process here in our agency. We if one of our team needs something, the other part of the team is working to do it. And then that carries on out into the community. The other part of it too is how your community views you. If they view you as professional and firm, they're going to expect that from you. And there's another part of this that crime will rise to the level that a community will tolerate. And we have no tolerance for crime in Brevard County. I think that's a big part of why our crime rate has plummeted. In fact, if you look, our population has gone up, in fact, dramatically increased, and our crime rates dropped by 44%. And we credit that to not only that we're an aggressive agency, but we've, to truly lower your crime rate, you don't solve crimes, you prevent them. And so we've partnered with our community to get them vital crime prevention information before they become a victim, not after. And by getting them that vital crime prevention information, they're able to prevent them or their family or their business from becoming a victim of crime. And what we've seen is that while the population's gone up, the crime rate's gone down. And in fact, we had fewer victims of crime last year than any time in the last 25 years in our community, with the population higher than it's ever been. So it's working. That partnership, that community outreach, that community relations, that image that we're projecting is all going together. And the last thing I would say in that regard is how you view your agency. I cringe a lot of times when I hear agency leaders that will say, our support team did this, or this unit supports that. In the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, we don't have any support team. We don't have any support units. Every member is vital to the success of our agency. You take one of them away, and we're not the agency we should be. So there are no support teams. Everybody's a vital piece of the success that we've been blessed to have.
I want to bring up a subject, and one of the things that when I talked to your assistant, thank you to Samantha, shout out to Samantha for all of her hard work. But when I texted her, we were talking about what would we be speaking about tonight. I said best practices, initiatives, strategies that work in effectiveness in terms of police community relations. And we, just so our audience knows and our viewers, our attendees on the webinar, we didn't go over any prescribed questions, right? So this is
Right.
all improvisation from the sheriff. But I went on your website and I looked at one of your initiatives that you have, and it's a youth program called Chance Camp.
Camp Chance.
Camp Chance. And it seems to me like an amazing way to get that collaboration, that communication, and the relationship and relating at a young age, relating the police with the community, but front loading at a very young age. Do you want to talk about this amazing program?
Sure. Camp Chance has changed a little bit through different sheriffs over the years. It was actually started under Sheriff Jake Miller back in the 80s. And the design of it back then was they brought in a group of kids, and ended up being the same kids every year. And those kids would go out to Camp Chance, and they'd be there every day. And it was really operated more like a summer camp where the kids would go there during the day and then go back home. And again, it's morphed over the years. But today, our Camp Chance has one design, and that is to get to these kids before they get to us. If we can get to them before they get into trouble, if we can get to them before they get exposed to the wrong peer groups, those type of things, then we win. We win as a community. We win for that kid's life, for that family that doesn't have to go through the just hardship of having a child that's in the criminal justice system. So we want to get to that kid before they get to us. Where we've changed it in the past 8 years is, instead of bringing a kid in and only reaching about 300 kids in our community, what we did was we decided to partner with all of our not-for-profits in the area, that they themselves host summer camps. And so now each not-for-profit gets to come in. And during that time with us, what they experience is, as you said, an overload of getting to meet all the different deputies, the different units. They get to learn about how our bomb unit works, how our ag marine unit works. They get to ride in airboats. They get to see the helicopters. They get to see canine demonstrations. Across the board, they are getting, it's almost like drinking from a fire hose, if you will, exposure to what we do, to how much fun we have. We go out and we play ball with them. We're playing cornhole. We're teaching them to fish. All of these things, all inclusive, as much as we can pack into that very limited time that we have with them. We cook hot dogs and hamburgers for them. We do everything we can to have it work where they're getting that exposure. We've taken kind of some of that lesson we learned through Camp Chance, and we started another program here that I'm very proud of. And that program is called Milk and Donuts with the Sheriff. And I will admit, when we first started it, a lot of people accused me of just creating an opportunity to get some more donuts, which we call power rings, by the way. Now it sounds much more nutritious. But what we do is we go into our elementary schools. Now, COVID obviously impacted us, and as soon as we can get started back up, we will. We're kind of at the mercy of the school board allowing us to come in. But what we do is we go into the elementary schools, and they bring in the whole class, not just a classroom, but the entire fourth grade class, the entire third grade class, whatever age group we're reaching at that point. We have a sponsor that used to do all the donuts for us, but now we actually use inmate labor to make the donuts out of the jail, and then we take them and we go in to meet with the kids. And it's me and my big giant bloodhound Junie that I always have with me. And when we go in, there's no agenda. We're not there to talk to them about drugs, because let's be honest, they know they shouldn't do drugs. We're not there to talk to them about bullying, because they get that from our school resource deputies. We're there to allow them to ask me any question they want to ask me about my life, about my career, about my family, about what my job entails, everything else. I spend about 45 minutes, as long as the class will allow me to stay. and they ask me any question they want to ask me. And boy, we're actually about to do a spinoff of it called Kids Ask the Darndest Things, because you and I remember that topic from a long time ago with Bill Cosby. But what we actually do is let them get to know their sheriff, let them get to know the school resource deputies and the crime prevention deputies that are with me. Now, we've picked up on a few things that's actually kind of helped us focus and dive into how we approach kids. The number one question that I get asked, and it inevitable, I get it in every single class that I talk to, but the number one question I get asked is not what kind of gun do you have? Have you ever shot anybody? It's not any of that. The number one question that I get asked is, why do you have two phones? I always have two phones. One is for work and one is for my wife and for politics, since I have to run for office. That's the number one question that I always get asked. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us where kids of today are looking. It tells us what they're focused on. They're looking at technology. They're looking at, why would somebody have two phones in that type of sense? So it kind of helps us focus in on our messaging and how we reach these kids today from it. But we've had tremendous success with it. It really, and here's where you see that starting to pay off. When I go out in the different parades, the 4th of July parade, the Christmas parades, all of those things, or I'm just in a restaurant, the kids come up to me and say, hey, you're Sheriff Ivy. I saw you at my school. You have a dog named Junie, or this or that. And so it's working. We're making that connection. We're getting to know them, and we're getting to know them in thousands because of how we do it to these classes. Basically, what we're doing is breaking a little bread with them, having some donuts and milk, and just letting them ask away on questions. And so, great community relations tool. It's working at a lower age, so we get to those kids before they get to us.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's kind of what I meant by front loading.
Yeah.
Giving that boost about police in the community and that relationship that can develop. What's your take on civilian police academies, citizen academy, whatever the terminology will vary from department to department, but what's your feelings about citizens police academies?
Sure. We do a Citizens Police Academy here. Again, COVID has impacted us like any other agency. We do it here, and the benefits to that are you're allowing your community to come in and get a behind the scenes look at what you do, how you do it, and why you do it that way. And that audience, that students in that Citizens Academy, if you will, they become a force multiplier, because now they go back out and they tell the people in their business or their employers or their family or their church all of these different things that happen. And so it becomes a force multiplier in spreading the knowledge of what your agency does, how they do it, and quite frankly, how awesome the agency is. It's a great tool for them to get to see it. And of course, part of that is getting to see the behind the scenes look at all the different units, all the different functions of the agency, but they also get to go on a ride along with a deputy. And usually that's an eye-opening experience for them.
Yeah. In NYPD, we had something called the TAC house, tactical house. They used to call it the fun house, but it wasn't so much fun really, but it was a tactical house, and it was a live simulation, placing police officers or people who are being trained to be police officers, or citizens in this case, of a citizens police academy, putting them in various scenarios, like handling of someone who is emotionally disturbed, someone with mental illness, someone who needs to be Baker acted in the case of Florida, right? Where, it's an involuntary custody situation. Do you have anything like that? Or are you familiar with anything like that? I'm sure you are.
We do. We actually have two things in that realm. And one of them is we have an actual shoot house where live ammunition inside. We let those that are in the Citizens Academy watch it. It's got an observation platform because it's open roofed, so they can watch it as it's taking place and see how decisions have to be made in literally milliseconds from that. But the more advanced thing that we have now is a 360-degree Milo, which is a simulator that's, as I said, it's 360 degrees. It's all around you. You can program different scenarios into it. In fact, we use our media production team to record the various scenarios. A lot of times it's off of cases or off of incidents we've had happen, and then we replicate those and put them into that device. The Milo is an amazing tool for training school resource deputies, training our deputies in the environments, letting the Citizens Academy go in and actually experience it. It shows where they hit. If they got hit, it allows them to communicate. You can talk back to it. There's an instructor with a headset on. So technology has certainly brought us way forward in that ability to do it. And it's really funny. When we got the Milo, one of our local media outlets criticized us for getting it because we had one that we had originally gotten in, believe it or not, 1998. And this one was the latest technology, the latest thing. And so they wanted to interview me about it. And they said, well, you already had one. Why did you make this expenditure? I want to say it was like $30,000 or something of that nature. Why'd you make this big expenditure to get that? And I looked at him and I said, well, is that an iPhone 6? That was when we got it. I said, is that an iPhone 6 you have? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, what was wrong with the iPhone 4 you had? Why did you get a new one? And of course, it sent the message of technology. We want the very latest in technology, especially when we're using that device to train our school resource deputies and our school guardians. And so if my child's in a school, I want the person trained to protect them on the very latest in technology, the very latest in training resources. And so it's an amazing tool. And Doctor, if you ever get a chance to come up and visit us, I would certainly welcome you and set it up where you could go out there and shoot it.
That is great. I would love that. We're going to follow up with you on that because I'm going to put Josh Enfinger and David Troxel, my two CJ seniors, with me. They're part of my production team, and the three of us are gonna take a ride up to Brevard.
I'll get you some great barbecue and a fun day at the Milo.
We're in. I'm gonna follow up with you on that. That's for sure. So here's what I wanted to ask you, and so that our viewers can understand, our CJ students can understand, anyone who's viewing this, that the education and training of police officers is critical. We all know that. I think that that's a given. It's important for us, and especially us as educators and trainers. We're all in. We're all in for education and training of our law enforcement. Isn't it also as important to train and educate our community about?
Oh wow, what a great point. And I'm gonna tie your point to one that I made earlier about don't wait for the emergency to happen to go into action. A few years ago, we actually met with all of our faith-based leaders. Your faith-based leaders have a great outreach. They have their own communication tools set up. They have an ability to speak to a very large audience. And so collectively, they become a very powerful and vocal force in distributing information. I tell everyone that if you show me a problem today, I'll show you where education and awareness are part of the solution in some capacity. So a couple of years ago, what we did was we brought all of our faith-based leaders together. And Doctor, you know this from your time on the job. In law enforcement, we always do a tabletop exercise. We always do a field exercise or some type of simulation with our training of our deputies, of our law enforcement officers. But we never do that with our community. And so a couple of years ago, we put together a training for our faith-based leaders. Our community leaders were involved in it as well. And that training centered around a drawn-out timeline of a critical incident that was occurring in our community, an officer-involved shooting that had the potential to be viewed by different sections of the community in a different way. And so we created a timeline that was about 5 hours long. And so we started it out with the incident happening, and then we would pause it and say, now as community leaders, as faith-based leaders, what would you be telling your outreach at this time? And then we would fast forward it to the next segment. What would you tell them now? And the scenario we had presented changed multiple times. Now, it was a real scenario, is one that I had experienced back when I worked for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement that had massive implications across the board. And so it was interesting for them to see how it unfolded, why we did certain things, why we didn't release certain things, why we did, all the way across the board. But it was also an education tool for us to see what they would be doing at that point. And at the end of the day, we all had a great understanding of, let's work together on this. Let's make sure that we're, understanding what the other person's doing, what the right hand understands what the left hand is doing. And it really, solved some future issues. If you go back to last summer with the situation that had taken place with George Floyd and the different things that took place around the country, Brevard County, in my opinion, served as a model for other communities to how we responded to that. We had candlelight vigils, we had community communication, we had conversations about it, roundtables. You know what we didn't have? We didn't have violence, because everybody was already a preformed relationship and partnership. Our community trusted us, and our community worked with us to make sure we didn't have any violence. Not a single episode of violence took place. And we had marches, we had, candlelight vigils, we had all of it. But what we didn't have was any violence, because we had done that front loading you spoke of. We've done our homework and our relationship building on the front end.
And it also sounds like the epitome of partnership, of partnering with the community, and recognizing that the community is, often not just a big capital C, but little C's, little communities, sub communities, groups within the larger community, and being able to really communicate with them and understand them and validate that, we're not perfect. We make mistakes, and there's always room for improvement, always, in everything.
There is,
right?
and it goes back to that trust. They trust me as the head of our agency. They trust our chiefs here. And one of the things that I've always done was, I don't wait for the media to break a bad story. Bad news doesn't get better with time. So if we have something happens, back in 2015, we had an officer that was shot in the line of duty. And a few days after that, we found out that two of our deputies, it was actually occurred during an attempted prostitution arrest. We found out through, the evidence, through the investigation, that two of our deputies had been involved with this prostitute. And I called a press conference on a Sunday morning. And I was not going to allow the media to break that story. I broke that story. I wanted our citizens to hear it from me. And what I've told our team, our command team, is our citizens will not judge me on what one of our deputies do. They'll judge me on how I handle what one of our deputies does. And we're swift. As I said, we make no bones about it. We'll arrest our own if they break the law, and we police our own. And out of it, the community respects that. They look at me and go, "How are you going to handle this situation?" And once I'm done, it's a one-day news story, and it's over.
So that's another key, and that's an effective leader right there. This is why we're showcasing the effective executives in policing, and you are among one of them that we have the utmost respect for, because the proof is in the pudding, in terms of what your strategies are. But you're not only validating to the community their injury, their complaint, their issue, the issue that they may have, but you're also just, getting right out in front of it and just taking the responsibility. Oftentimes we want to shirk the responsibility, and that makes it even more explosive.
You're exactly right. What you have to keep in mind is that if you are upfront about it and you tell exactly what happened, it's going to be a one-day news story, maybe a 2 days news story. But I would much rather take a one-day beating than a 15-day beating, because we piecemealed it, or we only gave them a little piece and then they went and found the rest. Put it out on the table. It is what it is. And, we make sure that we minimize how many of those we have by making sure that we're doing the right thing on the front end. A lot of the problems we see happening today happen because of poor recruiting tactics, poor backgrounds in that recruiting, a lack of retraining. We not only look for continued education, we retrain in that regard as well. And so if you're recruiting mediocre employees, the very best you're going to get is a mediocre outcome. And so we recruit the best of the best. And if they have a bad day and have a slip, we're still getting above average service from them. And
Right.
I think a lot of these agencies don't follow a mantra that I started day one. And that is this: I never miss the opportunity to get rid of a subpar employee. Never. If you are subpar and you rise to the level that I can fire you, I'm going to fire you, because I owe it to the other 1,699 members of this agency to protect their honor, protect their dignity, and to protect the professionalism of this agency. By the same means, if I have an excellent employee that stumbles, I'll never miss the opportunity to save them, to give them a second chance. But if you keep passing on opportunities to get rid of subpar employees, what you're doing is setting yourself up for a disaster.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned, recruitment efforts as another effective strategy. You've mentioned so many great things. We're almost out of time, and I want to make sure I get some of our attendees if they want to ask you a question. But just to kind of sum up, it sounds like the effective strategies that you've been implementing are not only communication, but partnership with the stakeholders. And that to me seems like that's such a key element. It's not just training. It always falls back to that. We have to retrain our police officers. It's such a complex issue, and it's so many variables. It's not just one. It's not just education. It's not just training. It's all of the stuff that you've talked about. Treating the rank and file with dignity and respect, and therefore you'll get the respect. You not only get the respect back, but you're going to get the respect toward the community.
That's right. And the community sees it. We mix in, if you ever follow our social media stuff, our Facebook page, we mix in a lot of humor with what we do. When it's appropriate, we put some humor in it, because humor keeps you coming back. It keeps you going, man, what are they doing next? One of the big successes we've had is we have a program called Wheel of Fugitive. And it's just like it sounds. It's a big giant wheel. It's got 10 fugitives on it. I spin it every Tuesday night at 8:00. And whatever fugitive it lands on, that's our fugitive of the week. And it's engaging. The citizens watch. In fact, now the fugitives watch it. They look to see if they're on it. A lot of them go turn themselves in. Does it work? We have an 88% success rate, where in the first 3 to 5 days, they either turn themselves in or are captured because of a citizen tip. And so, again, it's about engaging the community. It's about looking at this aspect. We're an agency of 1,700 strong. We have a community of 600,000. So when we engage the community, whether that engagement's by helping catch a fugitive, helping solve a crime, or helping prevent a crime, what we just did was created a force multiplier of 600,000 people that are watching over this community to keep it safe.
Yeah. Exactly. I want to just open up now this discussion a little bit to any Q&A that we might have from our attendees or our co-host panelists, like the dean, Dr. Castro, I know, who is the actual associate dean of the School of Criminal Justice. He's on. I don't know if he's actually available to share his video or talk right now, but let's go to the dean. Dean, do you have anything that you'd like to ask the sheriff or make a comment?
Sure. Yes. Sheriff, thank you for all of that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
My question is around, and you might have got at some of this, but it's more specific by county, by district, obviously in the state of Florida and probably around the country. You see more and more, not Citizens Academy, but citizens review boards that are oversight boards now. Do you have that in Brevard? And how do you relate to that board and at the same time balance out possible morale issues with your deputies?
Yeah, we do not have a citizens review board. We have a staff services team that conducts very thorough investigations on our folks. We have a state attorney that reviews any of the cases that rise to a potential criminal element. You know, I tell everyone that we do have a citizens review team in a sense, and that is 600,000 voters that can at any time vote me out of office if they don't think I'm running the agency right. Some of our smaller police departments have citizen review boards, but we do not. We've never gone in that direction, and my intent is to not go in that direction. It's my job to make sure that our team's doing it right. It's my job to make sure if they don't do it right, I get them out of there and cut the cancer out.
I think that's such a refreshing and reasonable approach. If they don't like the job you're doing, vote you out.
Yes, ma'am. And
thank you for that, Sheriff.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dean. Thank you again for your question and for your support. I'm going to give an opportunity to some of the other attendees if they're interested in to just raise their hand, and I can give them mic privileges. I know I have a couple of Alpha Phi Sigma members on as well, which is the Criminal Justice Honor Society, and they're on. A couple of them are on, and some of my students are on. And I see that Dr. Castro has his hand up, so I'm going to give him
give me video or give me death.
Share your video. Where are you? There you are.
It says it doesn't let me share my video if you, oh, there we go.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay. Excellent.
Good evening, Sheriff. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's my honor.
True pleasure to have you here. Listen, I have a question, and then I'm going to ask a different question because you spoke with the voters so much and because of the changes taking place here in Miami-Dade. But let me lead with my first question, and that's the CPAs, the Citizen Police Academies. What do you think of those as tools to bring closer community to police work?
So it's worked very well for us. Now, as I said, COVID impacted us where we haven't been able to do one since COVID started, but it's worked very well for us in bringing in people from all different walks of life. We announce when we're going to do them. We try and recruit participants from all over the county to come and do it. And we actually, to accommodate those citizens, because we're 78 miles long. And so we move each week we move the class to a different location so that we can try and pull from all different areas of the county to get them in. But they also get to experience all the behind the scenes aspects. One of the ones that they find most interesting is the jail. And as I tell everybody, a jail is like an aircraft carrier. It's a city to itself. And we have about a population ability of 1,800 in our jail. We usually operate at about 85–86% capacity. And it's very enlightening for our citizens to actually get the behind the scenes and be able to see how everything functions, why we do what we do. And that extends all the way out into our aviation unit, our bomb unit, our HR department, our career development team, all of it. It is a full breadth of what we do. And so the benefits of that to them are getting to satisfy their knowledge of wanting to learn about their law enforcement agency, how it works. And we go into some detail about our budget as well, how we create our budget, how we maintain our budget, what it's like to have to compete in today's world of law enforcement agencies, increasing their starting salary as a recruiting tool, and how we have to stay at that level to compete. Everything about our budget, down to the bottom line of it. And so it's very, very compelling to see all of those things. The benefits to the community is getting to learn that. The benefits to us is them going back and spreading that knowledge, putting it out to everyone they know, and then inviting others, suggesting to others, come do that, come experience it for it. So it's definitely a great tool on both sides of the house for us.
Excellent.
Great.
So here's my other question, and I know that there's others with questions, so I'll make it short. Do you favor a sheriff elected system or a police director award?
I absolutely favor the direction that Dade County is now going in, where they have an elected sheriff. And here's why. The sheriffs are the first and last line of defense for their citizens. And, you know, when you, and this is not a negative statement about a chief of police, but this is what I will tell you, is the sheriff needs to have the autonomy to be able to make the decisions they believe are best to protect the citizens. At the end of the day, government's one and only responsibility is to protect its citizens. That's it. That's government's one and only responsibility. And when you have a chief of police that serves at the leisure of, in most cases, 3 votes to remove them from office, then they're really not putting forth what they believe is best. They're putting forth what those 3 votes believe is best. In the position of sheriff, it's not 3 votes that takes them out of office. It's, in my case, 600,000 voters that have the opportunity. And so I think when you look at, you know, I always tell everybody, my job as sheriff is to protect what I call the 3 C's: our citizens, our cops, and our Constitution. And that's the value of having sheriffs. Our sheriffs should be the first and last line of defense. You know, I get asked a lot of time, what are you going to do if the feds come to you know, take our guns or attack the Second Amendment? And the answer is simply this: I'm going to stand up on the oath I took of office, the oath I took on the Constitution, to protect our citizens.
Thank you, sir. Thank you again for being with us tonight and for sharing your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Dr. Castro, for your continued support and your brilliance. And as talk about executive effective leadership, right there it is, Sheriff. That's our version right there. Between Dr. Castro and Dr. Durham, I mean, we are all set.
Well, you guys have a great team working down there. And maybe
Yeah.
one day I could come down and actually be in person in a presentation. I would.
Well, we would pack the house if you did that. I can guarantee you that. And I got to tell you something else, that we have an amazing discount for all our, now, you know, I'm going to do a plug now, going to do a little force. But we have an amazing discount for law enforcement. And so you seem to be, as we are, big proponents of education. And especially for your bosses, for the sergeants, you know.
Well, we actually do a full reimbursement for anyone in our agency, regardless of what role they play. Once they've been with us a year, we do full reimbursement for continued education, whether they're going to get a bachelor's, a master's, or a doctorate.
Awesome.
We want our team to you know, have that education component. And we really encourage our team, especially those that are looking at supervision, to work to get the management and supervision learning, additional learning.
We'll come to you and do the presentations for your officers and your personnel.
Excellent. I would welcome that.
Okay, that's great. So those are 2 dates. Those are 2 dates that I'm going to follow up on. But one date is for me, David, and Josh to come up and play a little bit with you.
And eat barbecue. Don't forget to eat barbecue.
Oh, we won't forget, believe me. Especially David and Josh, they won't forget. And then the other is for us to come up, all of us to come up and do a plug about, you know, what we have to offer, which are, you know, our Masters in Criminal Justice is among the top. It's 41, right? Ranked 41 according to the U.S. News and World Report. So we have a great program.
I'd love to have that. I'll bring in the right members of our team and staff to help further.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, just as a plug, another plug is, and I always say this, I say this to Dr. Castro, I say this to Dr. Durham and Dr. Kushner all the time, that leaving NYPD, you know, you can take the kid out of the NYPD, but you can't take the NYPD out of the kid. You know, you can't take the law enforcement out of me, right? And I miss, as I look at my career in the rearview mirror, I retired in 2003 after responding to 9/11 and being there for a year, and it was time for me to go. But I have always missed the job. I have always missed it, and because it's such a family. But being at NSU is a family. And I haven't felt that way since NYPD. So NSU I think is a great fit for law enforcement.
Well, I know exactly what you mean by the family aspect of it. I tell our team, during swear-ins, I tell them, today you joined the family. Don't ever forget your family at home, because they help get you to where you are and will always stand beside you. But today you joined the BCSO family, and Doctor, you'll get a kick out of this. I always tell them, listen, just like your family at home, there will be those you get along with great, those you don't get along with. There'll be the crazy, kooky cousin. But the difference in this family is one of us is the one coming through the door to save your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you again, Dr. Castro. I really appreciate it. I'm going to ask now for Josh to come on. Josh Enfinger, who you know and has been in touch with you and Samantha. He's one of our criminal justice seniors. He's going to be graduating this coming May, where we're going to miss him a lot. But Josh is interested in law enforcement. But he has a question for you,
Okay.
Sheriff.
Sure.
So once again, hello, Sheriff. I just want to say thank you for the invitation. The barbecue and the walk around sounds fantastic. I can't wait.
Oh, you're gonna love it.
And of course, while offset, me and David are always, gathering and like talking. And one thing that we definitely want to kind of like know about is for all these like young sheriffs and young police officers who are going through and like subduing with all this like stress and everything. What are we doing and what are we able to do for them to kind of like help keep them mentally stable and the intervention
Sure.
process?
Yeah. So, for us in our agency, and ideally a lot of agencies are following suit in this. We have some great partners. You hear me use that word a lot. We have some great partners that come at things from an employee assistance initiative, employee assistance program. So in addition to our EAP, we also have a crisis intervention team that is working, providing, again, we go back to that education work because it's paramount in what we do, but it's providing educations, going out, meeting, setting up, all sorts of different little things, whether it's luncheons or just talks to meet with the team and let them know there's somebody out there they can talk to. There's a lot of stress in this job, and whether that stress is from the typical type of calls that we go on to some of the stress, environmental stress that's happening where certain people don't like cops and are, the defunding the police, all the different things that are happening around the country. But what we try and do is kind of keep it simple. If our team, if we identify a member of our team that needs some help or some an opportunity to sit down and share, maybe their stress is not work. Maybe work is where they go to find, release from stress. Maybe their stress is at home, or they have a sick family member, or any of those things that play into it. We try and make sure we have the right resources available for them to do. Another thing that we did when I first became sheriff was, I go back to that analogy I gave earlier. Don't wait for the emergency to happen to go into action. What we found is that we would have deputies injured in the line of duty, or a deputy that all of a sudden was stricken with cancer or some other, a tragedy. And what would we do? We'd scramble around. We'd put together a fundraiser to try and help them. And then boom, it happened. Well, what we should have been doing was making sure that we were doing that on the front end, making sure that we didn't wait for the emergency to happen to go into action, that we already had an established not-for-profit that could help them when the emergency occurs. And also help evenly, because somebody might need just a little bit of financial help and somebody else might need a tremendous amount of help. And so we created a not-for-profit called the Brevard County Sheriff's Public Safety Charity. And that public safety charity, we do fundraisers throughout the year to put into it. So when the emergency happens, we're already ready. And it's been tremendous in how it's been able to help our team, whether our team is someone that we had a young man that was paralyzed in a diving accident. And we were able to immediately come in and help that individual, able to immediately come in and not only provide financial assistance, but a lot of the other resources through partnerships. We got a van donated. We got it retrofitted with the hand controls so that he could come back to work. And that individual who was paralyzed from the waist down is now a crime analyst with our agency, working every day, still an active member of what we do and the success that we're seeing.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Great question. Good luck to you. Want to bring David on
Yeah.
for a minute. He's
Josh, good luck, my friend. If you're looking for a great agency, come up here and come to work with us.
all right. There's 3 things that Sheriff has now invited us to do. So
Roger,
that's
I'm
great.
sorry. It looks like I'm going to Brevard County. I
It
will.
looks like you might be. Let's see. Well, let's see how the field trip goes first. But so David, I just wanted to bring you on just to say thank you again for your behind the scenes stuff, and if you wanted to say a quick shout out to the sheriff. before we go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sheriff Ivy, I just want to commend you on what sounds like amazing proactive approach that you're taking to your police department. It is very refreshing to see, and I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do next.
Well, I always tell our team the next great idea for our agency is not going to come out of my head. It's going to come out of one of theirs. And my job is to make sure it has a chance to be awesome. And
Great.
we have some amazing innovation. We're actually about to start a new program, and it's kind of, if you will, just kind of dovetails back into what we were talking about and being involved in the community and being engaged in the community. I'm about to roll out a new program called More Than a Deputy. And what this program is going to do on our social media sites is highlight the amazing talents of some of our law enforcement members, not just their ability and their skill set as law enforcement officers, but their skill set as a musician, as a baker, as a power lifter. And my intent is to brag on our team because truly there's some amazing hidden talents here, but to also introduce our team to the community a little bit more. So when they see Jim Hammond out there, they go, "You're the guy that bench pressed 500 pounds. And, you're the Joe Barrera, you're the person that sings and has your own band and stuff." So More Than a Deputy, it'll be rolling out pretty soon.
I love it. Putting the human face, because I always say that we don't recruit the police and law enforcement from another planet. We recruit them from this planet, and they're human. They're human.
Right.
And policing is human service completely. It's all about our interaction with others. Thank you so much, Sheriff, for tonight. I really appreciate it so much. We're going to be contacting you for the field trip barbecue.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to it.
And the other initiative that we spoke about. So thank you again. Be safe. God bless you. And thank you again for this amazing partnership that you have with us.
It's my honor, and thank you guys for including me in it.
Thank you. And I'm sorry that we've completely run out of time. And if you noticed in the chat box, and Sheriff, if you want to invite any of your deputies or any of your staff to next week, April 12th, and I'll send Samantha the special webinar link for it. We have a very big YouTube live and webinar, and it's Dr. Catherine Ramsland. She's a forensic psychologist. She's written over 60 books on forensics and crime. She interviewed the BTK killer. And so the name of our webinar next week, same, Monday night, 7:00. It's a different link, is Confessions of a Serial Killer. So I hope that we'll see.
All right, please send me the stuff and I'll put it out. I'll put it on our portal.
Oh, that's perfect. All right. I'm going to send you all of that information. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. And